Test 1 2, check 1 2.
Hello, if your name is Jared Jager, could you please report to stage left, ASAP? Jarryd Jager, to the front of the room, stage left. If your name is Jarryd Jager. Ladies and gentlemen, I am thrilled to share we are ready to kick off. Please welcome to the stage CSFN board member and Vice Chair of Summa Strategies, Kate Harrison.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 2026 Conservative Party of British Columbia leadership debate, coming to you live from the Kitsilano Ballroom at CSFN Vancouver, broadcasted across the country on CPAC and also available on YouTube. I'm Kate Harrison, your debate chair and the CSFN host for this evening. Joining me to guide tonight's discussion are our co-moderators, Tristan Hopper, reporter and columnist for the National Post, and Jarryd Jager, managing editor and chief reporter at Sitka Media, which actively reports on all things BC. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsors of our conference of tonight's debate: the Conservative Party of British Columbia, Modern Miracle Network, DoorDash, Meta, Enbridge, TikTok, and Oakbridge Advisory. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the many volunteers and organizers who made our conference possible. Everybody has been critical to today's success, but I would like to give a particular shout out to the exceptional Vida Brody. Most importantly, Vida is celebrating her birthday today. She chose to celebrate it with us conservatives. I think she turns the big 3-0 today, so happy birthday, Vida. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So we've got 90 minutes ahead of us to hear from the 5 individuals vying to lead the Conservative Party of BC. I hope you will join me in welcoming our candidates to the stage. First, we have Kerry-Lynne Findlay. Next up, we have Caroline Elliott. Up next is Yuri Fulmer. Now, Ian Black. And last but not least, to take the stage is Peter Milobar. So tonight's debate is divided into 2 main sections. Section 1 is going to focus on the future of conservatism. Section 2 will focus on the vision for British Columbia. Throughout these sections, candidates will face rapid-fire rounds with 30-second response times and deep dive rounds with 60 seconds to answer. Candidates will also be given limited rebuttal opportunities after the questions are asked. We bookend the debate with 60-second opening and closing statements, and just because I picked up 3 hours to get here does not mean you get extra time. They put a mom in charge of enforcing the stop clock, so I will warn you of that now. But to get into our first section, I'll throw it to my colleague Jarryd.
Okay, so we'll begin tonight with opening statements. Each candidate has exactly 60 seconds to introduce themselves and their vision to British Columbians. Following a random draw, we will proceed in the following order: Caroline Elliott, Kerry-Lynne Findlay, Peter Milobar, Yuri Fulmer, and Ian Black. Miss Elliott, your 60 seconds begins now.
What we're looking for is a leader. And leadership is about what you do when you're in charge. I've spent my life fighting the radical NDP. I came out first against DRIPA, called out activism in our schools, opposed race-based hiring when no one else would, stood up for our country when the NDP tore it down, defended free speech at the height of cancel culture. While I was doing that, there are people on this stage who were voting for DRIPA, for race-based hiring, for the lie that Canada is a genocidal state. Mr. Fulmer even calls British Columbians settlers on stolen land, when the biggest issue we are facing is stopping this land back agenda. Real leadership means doing what's right, not going along to get along. We need economic growth, we need fiscal discipline, but this is about the courage to stand up for British Columbia itself.
Thank you, Ms. Findlay.
You are deciding the future of BC, our way of life. Mine is a grand vision of fundamental change. Our homes, our individual rights are at stake. We need hope and prosperity. As Minister of National Revenue, I oversaw lower taxes, red tape cuts, and a return to surplus. BC will become strong, good paying jobs, modern infrastructure, resource wealth, and opportunity that's now blocked by the NDP. We'll see a Western alliance with Alberta and Saskatchewan become a powerhouse in our nation, a powerhouse no longer denied by Eastern and global elites, predatory foreign nations, and our own Constitution. NDP radical ideology has devastated property rights. Backroom, side agreements, and economic paralysis will end. will negotiate in the open, bring clarity, certainty, and competence. British Columbians deserve no less. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Milobar.
Thank you. The 40,000 BC Conservative members have a very important task ahead of them. It is up to them, up to all of you, to decide who the next leader of this party will be. And that's critical because we need to select the next leader that can become the next premier and win a general election. If we do not do that, we are mired in another 4 to 5 years of NDP disastrous governments. My experience as a small business owner, a city councillor, a mayor, and an MLA, and an unbeaten track record of 8 no in general elections has set the stage for me to be able to lead BC and get BC headed back in the right direction after a decade of NDP disastrous policy after disastrous policy. We need to stop the NDP, we need to stop David Eby, and we need you at home to make sure you are making the choice of who can best lead British Columbia. That is the ultimate question in this leadership race. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fulmer.
You know what, you're going to hear a lot of wonderful ideas up here today about how to fix our province. You're going to hear how the NDP's ruined everything in our province for us. And you know what, we're all right about all of those things. But the reality is leadership is a component of this. But the other piece is we have to be able to win elections and defeat the NDP if any of these good ideas are going to come to fruition. And the reality, and Kerry-Lynne and I don't often agree, but she said 12 months ago, BC's political history shows that any significant vote split on the right has resulted in an NDP government every time. And she's right. I completely agree. And that's why when I saw that Dallas Brody and 1BC were polling at 10%, I could not take the risk that they could win, that the NDP could win another election. And that is why I went out, reached a deal with Dallas. Others on this stage tried to cut a deal with Dallas and 1BC as well. But I was the only candidate she was prepared to do a deal with, and then I'm the only candidate who can win.
Thank you. And Mr. Black.
Thank you. You know, as I've traveled this province, I've encountered a level of concern that's palpable. People about whether they can afford to stay, whether their home belongs to them, and whether their children will have a future here. Yes, repealing DRIPA is job one. But DRIPA is the consequence of something bigger. It's going to take a full reset, economically and culturally, to get this province back on track. Tonight, we released a 5-point plan, a Conservative Premier's plan, to do just that. You'll hear more about it through the course of this evening. Ultimately, the outcome of this race will determine whether we are ready to form government or not. It'll take experience, it'll take judgment, and it'll take someone who understands how the private sector works, how to grow an economy, and someone who knows also how government works, has the tenacity to make the many changes needed to actually get things done. I alone have that experience, and I am ready to again defeat the NDP. Thanks for being here.
We will now move into Section 1, the future of conservatism. This section is about defining modern conservatism and how to make new conservatives, including people who may not have considered themselves conservatives before. We begin with a rapid-fire round. I will pose the same question to all candidates. You will each have 30 seconds to answer, followed by a rebuttal round, where you may use your 30-second rebuttal on one other candidate, who then gets 30 seconds to respond. After the response, there are no further questions or exchanges. Here's the first question. I'm going to take a wild guess and assume that you all agree Canada is not the country it once was, from coast to coast and coast. And in BC in particular, even the most basic economic and social indicators show that we're not doing as well as we were 10 years ago. Despite this, we've all met that one person who thinks everything is fine. Canada is thriving, united, and we're heading in the right direction. If you had one chance to try and convince them we're on the wrong track, what would you point to? Mr. Milobar, begin with your 30-second response to that question, please.
Thank you. My first response to them would be to ask them why they keep voting for the NDP. Secondly, I would be pointing out to them that fundamentally, if we do not have a thriving private sector economy based on our natural abundance of resource sector extraction sitting at our fingertips, we simply will not be able to grow all of the social services we rely on, like healthcare and education. That is why it's fundamentally important that we deal with that, and that is why we need to actually ensure that those projects are moving forward in a timely way.
Thank you very much. Mr. Black, 30 seconds, please.
I would pose the question, what exactly do you think is working and what's better than it was 10 years ago? We can't get a doctor, emergency rooms are closing, our children are coming home purporting to have value systems that don't match what we're talking around the we have 40,000 jobs lost in the last couple of months. If you want a different outcome, you've got to approach things a different way. A fundamental change is required that reflects good conservative principles, and if we stick to those and craft a message of hope and optimism, people will come and they will vote for us back in the government.
Mr. Fulmer, 30 seconds, please.
I think I'd ask them two questions. The first one is, do you feel free? Do you feel you have freedom to do what you want to do? Do you have the freedom to go where you need to go, to say what you need to say? Do you have the freedom to use your home the way you want to use your home? Do you have the freedom to educate your children the way you want to educate your children? And then I think I'd ask them, how optimistic are you about the future of our province? Do you see your children living in a better, stronger, more prosperous province than you do? Because if not, the alternative is conservative.
Ms. Elliott, 30 seconds, please.
I would point squarely at the education system, and I would ask them, are you okay with your kids being taught that the land they stand on does not belong to them? Are you okay with your kids being taught that they should feel shameful about our past? I would point out the fact that our kids are being told every day solely about the sins of our past and never about our collective successes. Conversations are happening between the school system and our children that are better had between parents and their kids. It's why we need to scrap SOGI and take the activism out of the education system.
Finally, Ms. Findlay, 30 seconds, please.
You know, Margaret Thatcher said, first you win the argument, then you win the vote. The argument is that we're going to provide a better life. Conservatism can do that. I've proven that before in the federal Conservative government under Stephen Harper. We lowered taxes. We made life more affordable. We got back to balance. We got back to a surplus. You need a hope and a vision for the future so that people don't keep leaving our beautiful province. So I would talk about that they will be better off with a Conservative government.
Thank you. We will now proceed with the opportunity for a rebuttal, starting with Mr. Milobar. 30 seconds to rebut, and then the candidate you choose has 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you. A question for Mr. Fulmer. You say to build hope and to build the broader economy. How do you propose to do that in a general election, winning a general election, to form an actual clear majority government when you have willfully decided that we would run with 5 less seats in an election? That tilts the electoral scales heavily against us in any general election right from the start.
You know what tilts the electorate against us is 1BC polling at 10%. Mathematically, if 1BC gets 10% of the vote in the next election, the NDP wins. That's not my opinion. That's not my rhetoric. That's pure, simple math. And if you think that you would rather have a majority of NDP in government rather than having 5 conservative 1BC members, then you and I are going to have to, I'm afraid, Peter, disagree on that. Because I would rather see 5 1BC MLAs than 50 BC NDP MLAs.
Now, to Mr. Black, 30 seconds to rebut. Your chosen candidate has 30 seconds to respond.
Of course, my question is for Kerry-Lynne. I understand the focus in quoting Margaret Thatcher. I also like to quote and make reference to the Bennett family, who governed for the better part of 35 years in this province. And they made a point of inviting people in, of making conservatism something that was attractive, that made people want to vote for us and grow the tent as large as we can. I'm concerned about the degree of kind of arbitrary tests that are being applied to make sure that we're only getting the right kind of conservatives to join our team. And I want you to comment on how you think that'll help us win a general election.
Well, thank you, Ian. Thank you. They took up 5 seconds with the clap. I have never said what you're just suggesting. I've never said that. I supported the BC Liberals back in the day because they were the only viable alternative to the NDP, which I have always opposed. But I believe, and I want to correct something you said too. You said I'm the only one with that experience. I have governed as a Conservative. You were a minister 15 years ago in a BC Liberal government. There's a big difference.
No one to Mr. Fulmer. 30 seconds to rebut. Chosen candidate has 30 seconds to respond.
I'm good. I strongly agree with everybody on the panel.
Okay, agree with everyone. Next on to Ms. Elliott. 30 seconds to rebut. Chosen candidate has 30 seconds to respond.
Sure, to Mr. Fulmer, look, I don't deny that you've been in charge of lots of things, but what matters is what you do when you're in charge. So in business, you plastered your website with land acknowledgements and then scrubbed them when you joined this race. As a Conservative candidate, you lamented that we're on unceded land. As Chancellor of Capilano University, you endorsed DEI, decolonization, and called yourself and your students guilty settlers on stolen land. How can you stand up for BC if you share the NDP's view that BC is illegitimate?
I've honestly admitted since day one that I've done land acknowledgements. You know, Kerry-Lynne, if you were at the last debate, you would have heard me say that.
You're lucky I wasn't.
The reality is, to conduct business in this province or to participate in institutions in this province, the reality was we sat in meetings and did land acknowledgements. We sat around the room and we talked about white privilege, because that is the regime that the Liberal United Caroline Elliott Party created for all of us to do.
You talked about white privilege?
Because that is the environment you created.
Wow. Finally, Ms. Findlay. 30 seconds to rebut, and then your chosen candidate has 30 seconds.
My question is for Caroline Elliott. I just saw another of your endless videos, 250,000 on Meta last month, saying we should hire British Columbians first. I guess your campaign team is excluded. I have a BC team. I refuse to let boys from back east dictate to us in BC how to run BC. There's plenty of talent right here. Why are you against hiring British Columbians to run your campaign?
I am so proud to have the talented team I have made up of incredible British Columbians and incredible top talent from all around the country. And you know what? You know who else brings in help from other provinces? The NDP. And you know what they do when they do that? They win. We better change our mindset into building winning teams if we have any hope of forming government in the next election.
All right.
Okay, moving on now to our second rapid-fire question in this section. So, every Conservative party in Canada inevitably hears the advice: if you won't moderate, you won't win. At what point is it worth losing to avoid compromising on your principles? The question goes to you, Mr. Black. You have 30 seconds.
Well, I'm of the view that we can win by wrapping a message of hope and optimism around existing conservative principles, and that you don't need to compromise them at all. If you think of what those represent, so that pave the way and get out of the way, that private property rights matter, that you can make better decisions with your money than government can. Those are basic conservative principles that we don't have to compromise on one little bit. What we're missing is a narrative and a welcome mat so that voters will come to us and people who have not thought of being conservatives before recognize that we're a far better alternative than what they got at the moment.
And Mr. Fulmer?
With all respect to the question, I think it's a loser question. Because what you're saying is that conservative values cannot win. And I believe conservative principles win every single time. We don't have to moderate what we do. We don't have to compromise what we do. And I also don't think we have to bring in talent from outside of British Columbia for British Columbian conservatives to win. Let's get back on top. BC Conservatives will win.
Thank you. Ms. Elliott?
It's an interesting comment from someone who, when they ran for the Conservatives, lost the seat they were running in for the first time in 50 years. We lost a seat to the right in West Vancouver Sea to Sky. So that's interesting to me. It might be because you abandoned Conservative principles. You abandoned them when you launched your campaign talking about standing on unceded territory, pushing aggressively gender ideology into the universities you ran, pushing aggressively DEI into the universities you ran, decolonization, indigenization, you name it, that's what happens when you lead organizations.
Thank you, Ms. Findlay.
Well, at least Yuri's run an organization. Anyway, the last time I heard someone say we need to moderate to win was Kevin Falcon. I remember that. And when Kevin Falcon led that party that Ms. Elliott and Mr. Milobar were part of, they brought us SOGI, DRIPA, safe supply, decriminalization of hard drugs, and they condemned the Freedom Convoy. You remember that?
Thank you, Ms. Findlay. Mr. Milobar.
Thank you. If you believe that DRIPA needs to be repealed, if you believe that we need to defend private property rights, should have a better K-12 education system, that SOGI needs to be repealed, that we actually need to have a private sector economy that is working, safer streets, if you agree with all of those as core underlying principles, you are a right-of-center voter in British Columbia. And that is how we will stay together and stay unified enough to actually form government. That is the key exercise on this, is forming government to correct all of those things that David Eby has brought upon us.
Thank you. And now an official opportunity for candidates to rebut, beginning with Mr. Black.
I'm not sure who I'm going to point this at, but I really think we have to remind ourselves that the real enemy is the NDP. The level of conversations got us to really focus on that, and I admire the spirited nature of how we started, but I really do believe if we get too far down this path, we're going to be offering up news clips that are going to bite us in the backside of the months to come. And we got to remember who our enemy is in this particular competition.
Okay, anybody want to counter that? No? Okay.
We all want to get rid of the NDP.
Okay, we'll move on to Mr. Fulmer.
Thank you. My question's for Kerry-Lynne. We're talking about conservatism here and conservative values. So I want to take her for a brief trip down BC Liberal United Kerry-Lynne Elliott Party Lane. You slammed social conservative views as, I quote, abhorrent. The NDP has endorsed your position on SOGI and safe supply. And you said, and I quote, Canada has a racist past. David Eby's, he's both endorsed you and commended you for backing out of the last debate. How do you feel about being David Eby's choice?
You should really stop getting your information from NDP press releases, is how I would answer that question.
So you deny that? You deny you said those things?
Never.
You deny you called social conservative views abhorrent?
So social conservative views, Christian values have an absolute place in this party. I will always defend that. I welcome social conservatives, Christian values into this party. I truly do. And I think, in fact, there's a great deal of alignment between those values and conservative values. I'll defend that any day of the week.
There'll be a great clip online in about 2 minutes.
Thank you. Ms. Elliott.
Oh, sorry. My question is for Ms. Findlay. I've defended Canada against accusations from the NDP and radical activists who have compared Canada's history to the very worst atrocities in human history. You not only voted for this, but whipped your party to vote for the lie that Canada is a genocidal state when you were the caucus whip for the Conservative Party of Canada. Do you believe that Canada is a genocidal? Is that a conservative principle?
Absolutely not. And first of all, I wasn't the whip at all when that vote was taken. Secondly,
you were.
That vote, I was not. Look it up. Secondly, when that vote was done, was, I think, within days of the first announcement about Kamloops and the graves there. Nobody knew the facts. Nobody knew what was going on. The idea of it was presented as a fact, and we voted. Thereafter, I have been seeking the truth.
And Ms. Findlay?
Oh, forgot. My question is for Mr. Milobar. And I assume we all want the best for British Columbia. But, sir, you were a BC Liberal MLA when that party voted for DRIPA. You've talked about voting for it. Well, you did vote for it. Then you talk about repealing it. Then you've talked about replacing it. Then you've talked about tweaking it. How can voters trust you to act on the most fundamental shift in our province that we have ever seen?
Thank you. Yes, I did vote against DRIPA in 2019, and DRIPA needs to be repealed. We were assured by the government of the time that it would not have the consequences we're seeing. They obviously either lied or didn't know what they were doing. Either way, it needs to be repealed. I also put pressure to have the Land Act changes stopped. I put pressure and voted against the Haida Agreement. My track record is very clear. The reality is, and Ms. Findlay's a lawyer, she would know this, there is still a constitution in Canada, and we still need to deal with things post-DRIPA. That does not change that DRIPA needs to be repealed.
You voted for DRIPA. You said against.
Thank
you
you.
voted for DRIPA.
Mr. Milobar?
Thank you. A question for Ms. Findlay. We've seen other MPs that were running in the 2025 federal election successfully be courted to run in this leadership race, and they contemplated it across British Columbia, and they decided to not do that. The simple question for you is, had you been successful as a Conservative in the last federal general election, would you still be standing here on this stage today?
Well, I don't deal in hypotheticals, and that's definitely a hypothetical I've never been asked before. What I know is this: I'm looking to the future of my home province, born in Ladysmith, grew up in Vancouver Island. I've lived here all my life, and even when I was in Ottawa, always advocated for BC and our community. I am proud to stand here as a candidate for the Conservative Party of BC. We need leadership, we need focus, and we do need experience governing as a Conservative with results.
Okay, thank you. I'll now pass it over to Kate, who will explain the deep dive round.
In this Jeopardy-style deep dive round, each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond to a tailored question from one of 6 categories: affordability and taxes, culture and identity, education and healthcare, provincial-federal relations, public safety, or resources and the environment. Candidates will have 60 seconds to respond to this question. It will then be followed by a rebuttal session. The first question opportunity goes to Mr. Fulmer. Please choose your category.
Public safety for 200, please, Alex.
Yes.
That was good.
I'm more of a Jennings fan myself. But, so for public safety, how do you address the problem of catch and release justice in BC using only your powers as Premier? So assume the feds are not going to help you and may even be hostile to your goals. What levers will you use? What levers do you have at your disposal that you would use?
Yeah, it's a great question, because we live in a province, one of only 3 in Canada, it's us, Quebec, and New Brunswick, where the police cannot lay criminal charges. So when the police arrest somebody, they take them to the station, they fingerprint them, they handcuff them, then they decide whether they are going to, quote, recommend criminal charges. And if they recommend them, they have to fill out a form called the long form that takes 4 to 6 hours to complete. So the police are off the streets for 4 to 6 hours filling in a form. Then they submit that form, turn the criminal back on the street while they wait for Crown Counsel to decide what to do. And you ask yourself, well, how did this happen in this province? Why don't we trust our police to lay criminal charges? Because we should, and that is the easy fix. That is within our authority as Premier. That's within our authority in government to do. But you ask yourself, how did this happen in British Columbia? And do you guys remember the book that our Premier wrote before he was Premier? How to Sue the Police. That is the man responsible for your family's safety. And no wonder we don't trust our police. We can fix that.
Next question is to Ms. Elliott. What is your category?
Culture and identity, please.
Culture and identity. What does it mean to be a cultural conservative in 2026? 60 seconds, please.
It's something I've been speaking up for a long time, because for far too long, parties of the right have talked all about free enterprise, which of course is important. We all like tax cuts. We all like deregulation. We all like fiscal discipline. That's critical. We all agree on those things. But you know what we haven't been doing? Standing up for our culture and identity as British Columbians. The left has been fighting that battle. That is why their ideology has been driven into every aspect of the public service, into our education system, into our public health office, into every corner of government that you can imagine. What we've been doing this whole time as political parties is not even holding up our end of the tug-of-war rope. So we may win some battles here and there, but until we deal with those issues, we will be losing the war. Things like how land back and shame drive DRIPA and the uncertainty and the lost investment climate. Things like drugs and crime that leads to small business shutting down. It's not economy or cultural issues, it's cultural issues being at the core of where our economy ends up.
Okay, the next question is for Ms. Findlay. What'll it be?
Affordability and taxes.
All right. So you've all agreed to a certain degree that BC has a spending problem, not a revenue problem. With that in mind, which taxes would you axe and which would you keep?
Well, we have a beautiful province, so why are people leaving? They're leaving because they can't afford to live here. So the only way to achieve affordability is to lower the cost of a bloated NDP government and increase revenue, which leads to lower taxes. You know, looking at the way we approach this, I have to think of my time, again, governing as a Conservative Minister of National Revenue. We were coming out of the 1930s, a terrible time of recession with debt. We lowered personal income tax, lowered corporate income tax. These are things we can do here again. I want to get to lowering taxes on everyday essentials like gas, 44 cents a litre. Like Manitoba, where they've taken the PST, 7% off of food. Then as we're leaning out government, getting away from a bloated bureaucracy, we can see these things happen. Because the goal is to lean out government and increase our revenues, and we can do that by unleashing our natural resources.
Next question is to Mr. Milobar. Milobar, what is your category, please?
Thank you. I'll do affordability and taxes as well, please.
Affordability and taxes. What do you think is the main reason for soaring home prices in BC? 60 seconds, please.
Thank you. There's no doubt that our housing affordability crisis continues on despite a slowing market. There's many factors into this, though, and a lot of it is actually non-cost pressure. It's government costs, it's government regulation, it's government delay. It creates carrying costs to the developers so that when they're waiting to build year after year after year, all that extra carrying cost goes into the unit. We need to strip back the approval processes. We need to make sure there's one unified building code across British Columbia. We need to freeze the step code at step code 3 to make sure the builders, like they've asked, can actually adjust to things and not worry about accelerating any more on that. We need to actually look at the development cost charges and the community amenity agreements and make sure that municipalities are actually operating in a responsible way so that we actually don't keep layering hundreds of thousands of dollars quite literally on every single unit. There's many things we can do to bring down the overall cost and efficiency in construction.
And Mr. Black?
I'm worried how deep in the well we're going for this one. I'm going to go with affordability and taxes as well, please.
Okay. Would you ever bring back the HST?
What a good question. You know what? I think that ironically, the NDP have actually just done that without any of the advantages. The recent expansion of the PST that the NDP just did is, I find wonderfully ironic, is they added it onto the strata fees, to professional fees, and to security services, all of which, by the way, I would repeal the moment I become Premier. But no, I don't think that is something that British Columbians have an appetite for. I think there was a very clear lesson learned when the HST was first introduced, which is you don't surprise the electorate with something, even although they did ultimately get their say at the end of the day. But what I'm really focusing on is a 20% tax reduction across the board as part of one of the first things that I do once I become Premier of this province. We need to get our taxes down, and we need to take them away from seniors as well. Tax reduction for seniors. The other thing I would also do, by the way, is reverse what the NDP did to our seniors. The attack on our seniors with respect to the property tax deferral program is abominable. That's got to get reversed as well as the deregulation challenge for our small businesses.
Okay, we'll now move to the rebuttals, beginning with Mr. Fulmer.
No, I'm good. I agree with everything that got said. Though I would ask a question, because my question last time didn't really get answered. So I do want to go back to Kerry-Lynne, because she talked about good conservative values. And I do want to go back to which social conservative values do you find, quote, abhorrent, Kerry-Lynne? And if you could just speak specifically, you called them abhorrent. You were specifically speaking about a couple of MLAs. What of their values do you find abhorrent? And it's okay if you've changed your mind. It's okay to change your mind. That's wisdom. But what did you consider abhorrent then?
So I will repeat that probably the best source of information is not NDP press releases. It's not spliced videos of me clearly wearing two different outfits jammed into one, pretending that I said something that I didn't. I have been absolutely crystal clear that Christian values belong in this Conservative Party. I would welcome them. I would embrace them. I would grow this party, and that is what this is all about, by the way, everyone. It is about keeping this party together, not institutionalizing divides that will cost us a majority government.
Thank you. Ms. Elliott.
Mr. Fulmer.
Surprise, surprise.
Everyone's first job is a real stepping stone in their career. It's the first step they take to go on and build a brighter future for themselves, getting that essential work experience. We are in a youth unemployment crisis. BC youth want to work. I was speaking with a man last night. He said he posted 25 positions for seasonal work in the restaurant sector. He got 500 applications because our youth want to work. He's a good employer. So my question for you is, with your temporary foreign workers in your restaurants, either you're selling out youth to make a buck, or your working conditions are so bad that youth don't want to work there.
Well, if that was a multiple choice question, I pick answer C, not A or B. I got my start in the drive-through of an A&W. I didn't have an illustrious career that started in politics or that started in university. I started in the drive-through of an A&W. Hi, my name is Yuri. Welcome to A&W. What can I get for you today? Do you want fries with that? Let me answer. 93.5% of our employees are Canadians. They're Canadians because they deserve those jobs. There are places we just can't find people.
Ms. Findlay?
Well, I think Kerry-Lynne Elliott just saved someone else from a question, because I'm going to tee off on what she was asked earlier. You keep responding to this issue over Christian values and what is abhorrent to you by saying that these are NDP talking points. I've seen the video myself. You were on a public channel, on video, in public, saying that Laurie Thronus's beliefs, Christian values, and him not believing in gender ideology were personally abhorrent to you.
Thank you, Ms. Findlay.
Again, I encourage you to not look to videos made up of multiple different conversations put into one. And I would say to you,
tell the truth.
The absurdity of telling someone who was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school, went to church every Sunday, that I somehow find Christian values abhorrent is ludicrous. Ludicrous.
All right, the evidence is there, so speak the truth.
Thank you. Mr. Milobar?
You know what? Based on all of that, I'm good.
And Mr. Black?
Yeah, I got nothing.
Seems like a really good time to move to a palate cleanser, which is great because that's what we have coming up next. So this is meant to be a lighter round, an opportunity to get to know a little bit about the candidates on a more personal level, less focused on policy. You'll each have 30 seconds to respond to a question for each of you. There's no rebuttals here. The first question goes to Ms. Elliott. What's your streaming recommendation?
Well, you know what I'm doing right. I don't get a lot of time to stream things at the moment, but what I'm trying to do is read to my kids every night before bedtime. I'm reading through the Harry Potter series with them, and when we're done each book, we get to actually watch Harry Potter as a reward for getting through it. So I would say it's Harry Potter, written by an incredible woman, J.K. Rowling, a badass champion of women's rights.
And next for Ms. Findlay. So it's a quiet Sunday afternoon. Where would we find you?
When would I find that time? Sorry.
What's a quiet Sunday?
I don't have many quiet afternoons. Go ahead, sorry. What was the question? Sorry.
How would you spend a quiet Sunday afternoon?
Oh, well, first of all, I have to find one. And I'm intrigued by what Miss Elliott said about her kids, because I did exactly that. I read every Harry Potter book to my kids when they were growing up. Thank you. And I would spend that afternoon, besides doing debate prep, I suppose I would spend it with my family, enjoying time with them, because we all need the anchor of our nuclear families and the love and support they give us.
Now for Mr. Milobar, your palate cleanser question is, which dead public figure would you resurrect?
And
Wow.
don't say Kevin Falcon. Don't say that.
Wow, that's
Do they have to be actually dead?
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
just
I
dead
left
in
my
appearance?
Ouija board up in the room, but no. You know what? Given the times we're in and the circumstances we're in as a province, and how we do have to bring the right of center voter back into the same page, I'd probably actually like to sit down with W.A.C. Bennett and actually pick his brain on how he actually did it so successfully for so many years.
Okay, on to Mr. Black. What's the last book you read, and would you recommend it?
Oh, the last book I read was a biography on Steve Jobs, and I would recommend it, although a third of the way through I came to the conclusion that he's somebody that I'm glad I never met. He was a messed up brother, and I don't think he was a particularly kind guy, and I love brilliant people, I love learning from them, but I do believe that kindness is a superpower, and some of the stuff he did, I'm a big tech guy, I'm a big fan of Apple products, but yeah, there's some stuff there I don't admire, but it was a fascinating read nonetheless. It taught me what I believe. Yeah.
Lastly, for Mr. Fulmer, your palate cleanser question is, surprise us. What's one fact about you we would not expect?
I can shear a sheep. And fast.
Wool coats will be available after the debate, I'm assuming. Okay, thank you guys very much for that. We're going to move now into Section 2, Vision for British Columbia. This theme is focused on overcoming a decade of NDP rule, restoring accountability, and addressing the major issues that face British Columbians. We'll start as we did in the first section with another rapid-fire round. You'll each have 30 seconds to answer the same question posed by Jarryd. There will then be an opportunity to rebut once you have all responded. Jarryd.
So, the BC Conservatives have spent the past 2.5 years targeting the BC NDP, primarily by going after Premier David Eby. Now, there's a good chance that he's no longer leader by the next election, and a less controversial figure takes over. We all saw what happened to the CPC when Carney replaced Trudeau, so how do you ensure your party doesn't fall into the same trap?
That goes to Ms. Findlay, and you have 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Well, when you talk about falling into the same trap, I agree, because we need to remind people, should that happen, and it's a hypothetical, I would much rather go into an election against David Eby because I think he has a lot to answer for. But we need to remind everyone that the team is still the same, because I imagine it will be more or less, and that even with a new leader, they are the people who brought in destructive policies to our province.
Thank you. Mr. Milobar.
Thank you. We have to be the positive voice of change. We have to demonstrate very clearly that the economy is actually growing, that people find hope again, so they stop leaving to go to Alberta. You think about when somebody comes home from work, if their boss is downsizing, can't afford to repair things, isn't sure if they're going to have to lay staff off, versus somebody coming home because their boss is expanding, growing, actually reinvesting, and the mood that puts you in, thinking you can actually do better in British Columbia and get ahead. We have to instill that back in all voters in British Columbia in the next election.
Thank you. Mr. Black.
Well, there's two parts. One, to pick up on Peter's thread, we have to take what is best about being a conservative and all of those values that we so passionately believe in and package that into a platform of optimism, hope, and that's where we're going to get our votes. But with respect to the NDP's track record, we are blessed with an abundance of riches with their failures. It's not just about David Eby. It's not just about DRIPA. It's about the regulatory burden. It's the attack on senior citizens. It's the HPOA and the fact that they've attacked the medical profession from stem to post in this province. It's also about the senior citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Black.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Fulmer.
I worry about this a lot. I worry the NDP replaces David Eby, who's been the worst premier in BC recorded history, with somebody who on the face of it, will seem more reasonable and more rational and more moderate. That is exactly why we cannot afford to split the vote on the right. Exactly why. We need to reconcile that 1BC has 10% approval and that they will divide the vote and NDP will win regardless, unless we have a deal with them, and I'm the one with that deal.
Thank you. Ms. Elliott.
I do worry about complacency. I've been talking to British Columbians all around this province, the Northwest, the Southeast, everyone in between, and there is a sense out there because people are so frustrated and they see clearly how bad the NDP's policies have been, that they're kind of like, anyone can beat David Eby. Like, why does it matter? It does matter because A, not everyone can beat David Eby, but B, not everyone can beat who comes next. It's a crucial question that should be in everyone's mind, not just who can beat David Eby, but who can make sure that we absolutely keep this party together.
Thank you.
And grow our appeal. I need it. Yeah.
Okay, now the opportunity for rebuttals. Ms. Findlay, do you wish to use yours?
Well, this one would be for Mr. Fulmer. You have capitulated 5 seats. Voters are looking for a fighter, a champion, not a compromiser. And capitulating, we need to win a majority government and not do any capitulation before we get to the starting line. To me, this shows a lack of political experience. Which 5 seats? All in Surrey, all in the Okanagan? Who chooses, you or Ms. Brody? It's not smart business. So why do you think it's the way to go forward?
You know, my years of business experience and my years of leadership experience have taught me that you have to be pragmatic in life. You have to look at the reality of the situation you're faced with, and you have to look back in history to 1972, where we split the vote and lost. 1991, we split the vote and lost. 1996, we split the vote and lost. 2017, we split the vote and lost. 2024, we split the vote and lost. We have got to be pragmatic of the situation we are in today. And the reality is 1BC will cause the NDP to win. I would rather see Dallas Brody in the legislature.
Mr. Milobar.
Thank you. It's a question for Ms. Elliott. You referenced that we would be needing to focus in not just on Mr. Eby, but anyone in the NDP, and it's about finding somebody that can defeat the NDP. And almost a week ago, we could have had a confidence vote if the Premier didn't flip-flop back again and brought the government down on DRIPA. Now, 4 of the 5 of us said, let's down tools and actually go straight to the general election and not waste 25% of it waiting to tally votes that may or may not happen. Why did you not want to actually go directly into an election?
I will never apologize for giving the 42,000 members of this party who signed up to choose the next leader who takes us into the next election. I will never apologize for saying they deserve that right. And by the way, thank you. By the way, when it comes to the next election, you don't say to the public, hey, vote for us now, we'll pick your premier later. That's not how it works. It's a terrible idea. And I was the only one who stood up when it was hard.
Thank you. Mr. Black?
You know, the question's for Kerry-Lynne. You speak a lot about the importance of our brand, and after being endorsed by MLA Tara Armstrong a little while ago, she made some comments yesterday or the day before that included language that was a direct lift from Nazi propaganda. And we lost the election in 24, due in part to some blatantly racist comments as well. So I do believe we have to conserve our brand, but do you condemn the comments made by Tara Armstrong and reject her endorsement, and do you condemn all racist comments that may have cost us the 2024 election?
Well, first of all, I'm very proud of the fact that among those of us standing here, I have the most endorsements from the most MLAs sitting right now in the legislature, with another one to come shortly. And you don't know where your endorsements are going to come from necessarily, but with respect to what Ms. Armstrong said in the legislature, which I believe she withdrew her remarks, I am not responsible for what other people say. She is an independent MLA, voted in by her community. Says I still have some time, I thought. Oh. Anyway, I would never use rhetoric that marginalizes the Holocaust, ever.
Thank you. Mr. Fulmer?
Yeah, I would just put to Kerry-Lynne Elliott again with the follow-up question to the one Peter asked, because I'm very concerned that it shows to me a complete lack of faith in our interim leader, Trevor Halford, and in caucus to have gone in and won that election. Because I think 4 of the 5 of us on this stage believe we would have won that election in a slam dunk under Trevor's leadership, and if Trevor won, we would have lined up behind him, and I don't give a rat's behind about a leadership contest. I give a rat's behind about beating the NDP, and we would have stood behind Trevor.
I'm curious if there's a question.
I inflected at the end.
I hope this isn't eating up my time, but I'm genuinely wondering what the question is.
Why you weren't prepared to stand behind Trevor caucus and go in and win an election, and why you wouldn't have supported Trevor's leadership when he won, why you wouldn't have supported him as Premier, and why you would have sought to unseat him as Premier by winning some leadership contest.
Oh, okay. So now I see. I have every confidence in Trevor. He's been an incredible interim leader. Can I get a round of applause for Trevor? Thank you, Trevor. You're incredible. You're doing an amazing job, and it's never been about that. It is about depriving our... You just said you were going to install a premier. I don't suggest Trevor's saying this. I'm suggesting you're saying you were going to install a premier and deprive the 42,000 members of this vote. Did your 15,000 members sign up for that?
No, but 3 million British Columbians would.
Thank you. Thank you. Miss Elliott?
Oh, I get a chance. Okay. So I just want to go back to something that we talked about earlier, because Yuri, when I asked him about depriving our youth of jobs, he said, yeah, I mean, I was an A&W and it was so great. It was this huge career builder for me, and I was out there taking orders in the drive-thru. That's all really good. Why are you depriving youth of that very same opportunity by hiring temporary foreign workers to make a buck? It's not right. Our youth want to work in British Columbia. Tell us why.
I think I did, but I'll happily repeat it. There are places in British Columbia where it is hard to find people. 93.6% of my A&W workforce are Canadians, permanent residents, people here, just like me, I was, and I understand you might have had an entry-level job at some point back in your past. That is who we are. We hire people who are local unless there is absolutely no alternative. We all want to hire our friends, our neighbors, our customers. It just makes sense.
We will now enter another deep dive round featuring specific policy questions prominent thus far on the campaign. You will each have 60 seconds to respond. The first question this time goes to Mr. Milobar. This is the DRIPA question. You've all vowed to repeal DRIPA, but what if that doesn't happen peacefully? What do you do if things turn ugly and you're looking at rail blockades, highway blockades, the breakdown of civil order? You have 60 seconds.
Thank you. DRIPA needs to be repealed. DRIPA needs to be repealed regardless of what threats or other types of intimidation might be used. It's that simple. There is a rule of law in British Columbia and in Canada, and we have to maintain that, and we need to follow that. DRIPA is not working. DRIPA is creating unrest and unease and confusion and uncertainty as it is. It's not getting better just sitting there on the books. Even the Premier has had to grudgingly admit the mess he has finally made with DRIPA in terms of the changes to the Interpretation Act and DRIPA itself. So it needs to be repealed. The Premier needs to go, and we need to be able to stand with fortitude to protect the rule of law, stand by the Constitution of our country, and make sure that we actually move forward progressively as a province.
Mr. Black, you have 60 seconds.
You've just asked the most important question of the day. It's not about repealing DRIPA. It's about what do you do after DRIPA. You need to think about the risk that we're taking by putting somebody into the Premier's office who does not have the experience to take those phone calls from the industry executives who are saying that there's blockades on the roads into the woods, the mine sites, and the oil and gas fields in northern British Columbia. Taking the phone calls from the Labour leaders who are saying, Premier, we can't get our folks to work, and the municipal leaders throughout this province who are going to be taking that their town economies are coming to a standstill because of what's happening. That is why this contest is so important. You need to have the experience in the corporate side and the government side who has sat at that Treasury board table and understands the wheels and mechanics of government as they exist now, because this is going to be the biggest issue that we deal with. Not repealing DRIPA, but what happens next. And that is where experience matters. And that is what I bring to the table in this competition.
Mr. Fulmer, you have 60 seconds.
Ian kicked off his statement by saying this is the biggest question of the day. I'm going to go a little further and say this is the biggest question of our lifetimes. This is the biggest issue we are going to confront in our lifetimes. And I tell you, we are busy, and everything everybody said is true. We need to repeal DRIPA. We need to do all of those things. We need to do them on day one. British Columbians deserve certainty. But one thing we do need to do is negotiate with Indigenous communities on a level playing field. And right now, the playing field is not leveled. So I'm announcing today and here that under a Fulmer-led government, we will cease the voluntary transfer of land and money to Indigenous communities in British Columbia so that the playing field to negotiate is level, and we will not continue to give away taxpayers' money until we are all at the table as British Columbians to negotiate a prosperous future for all British Columbians. Together.
Ms. Elliott, you have 60 seconds.
I want you all to listen really carefully when everyone on the stage agrees that this is the single biggest, most existential issue facing British Columbia. Because here's a reality. We've all said we'll repeal it. I am the only one who actually will. And this is how you know. Because back when it was politically difficult to talk about it, I was standing there saying, this is terrible and we should never do it. Mr. Milobar, I love you, but you were voting for it. Mr. Black, you were calling for its adoption into the corporate sector. Ms. Findlay, you were saying that you were endorsing the genocide lie that underlies the entire land back agenda. And Mr. Fulmer, I don't even know where to start with you with your stolen land comments. If you weren't willing, if you weren't willing to call it out when it was politically hard, I can tell you when we're all agreeing it's going to be politically hard to actually drive through this change that has to happen, I can promise you, you won't be there driving it through when it counts. I'm the only one who will.
Ms. Findlay, you have 60 seconds.
Well, first of all, yes, I will fully repeal DRIPA quickly as Premier. When you hear people say they're going to repeal it on day one, that is a legislative impossibility. Let's get real about this. Also, it's not just DRIPA. It's the fact that DRIPA language has been sewn into almost every piece of legislation that the NDP has brought forward. We've got to do a full review, and we've got a lot of weeding out to do to get this out. But this is not just an academic exercise for me. I didn't just write a paper on it while I went for years and years to get a PhD. I have lived and litigated this. I have gone all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada fighting this. And to suggest that I'm anything less than a fighter on this issue and that I am not to be trusted with my word is absurd and insulting. Look it up. 2000, Supreme Court of Canada, Musqueam case. I defended and was part of the litigation team that won that case against Musqueam. I'll do it again.
Thank you. We'll now have a rebuttal period with 30 seconds for a rebuttal and 30 seconds to respond. Mr. Milobar.
Thank you. Mr. Black, you touched on your experience in cabinet. I would note that the last time you ran in a general election and were successful was 2009, 17 years ago. It was 15 years ago you were last in cabinet. And in fact, if memory serves, you were fired from cabinet and then 6 months later quit caucus and forced a by-election 6 months later, mid-term. With that type of track record and the unsuccessful track record in the latest federal election, why this newfound love to be a provincial politician?
I thought we were friends. Look, I credit the federal election for reigniting my passion for actually getting involved in public service and moving the dial for 5.7 million British Columbians. I've never left a job undone at all. I'm very proud of the fact that when I was Labour Minister, we had the longest period of Labour peace in this province. And when I was the Trade Minister, we reduced our trade with America by 30% in favor of Asian countries, which would be awfully helpful right about now. I'm delighted to be in this contest and to get back into a job of leadership in the province of British Columbia.
And Mr. Black, the rebuttal goes to you.
I guess I'm struggling just with the sidebar comment made by Kerry-Lynne about me being in the corporate sector and declaring that she's the only one with the tenacity or experience to actually get DRIPA repealed. With respect, there's many of us on this platform who have experience in leadership positions who've actually led something, and I'm struggling with your frame of reference to actually say that you could do that when you've never been in the position of responsibility.
Leadership is what you do when you're in charge. If you are leading a multi-million-dollar business association and you have nothing to say as DRIPA is coming down the pipe, that's a problem because your job is to advocate for business interests and you're not doing that. When major court decisions are coming down that are the predecessors to the Cowichan decision and you have nothing to say, that's a big problem. We need someone with the courage to stand up without a multi-million-dollar organization behind you, out there on a limb saying, this isn't right, changing the dial in the conversation. We need more of that. That's leadership.
Mr. Fulmer.
I was going to ask the same question as Ian of Kerry-Lynne, but I'll give her a break.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Oh, it's my turn then.
Pass on to Ms. Elliott.
Okay. My question is for Peter. Look, you voted for DRIPA. I think that's established. You voted for the NDP's so-called Anti-Racism Act, which is really a DEI-driven, race-based hiring bill, something I know Mr. Fulmer agrees with in his organizations. Look, the first thing our government will have to do is repeal the bills you voted for. So how do you feel about that going in to lead this party if one of the first things you're going to have to do is repeal those very things you brought into law?
We questioned heavily most of the bills you were talking about. And again, in an effort to try to actually move the economy forward, we took the government, perhaps unwisely, at their word about the ramifications of it. As bills became very clear that they were not working as intended, I've been pushing back in the legislature daily. I'm the only person in this race with a seat in the legislature. And I daily push back on the NDP on all of these issues, as do all of my colleagues, some of which are here today.
Finally, to Ms. Findlay.
Mr. Black, You were a backbencher and then a minister in Gordon Campbell's government, a government that became very unpopular. You were there through the HST debacle, the BC rail scandal, introducing the carbon tax, which you continue to defend, advancing the Indigenous agenda and safe supply, saw the closing down of Riverview to save money, facilities we sorely needed. What about the cost of emergency services, vandalism, homelessness, mental illness played out on our streets? What should we as voters say to someone who has not been in government for 15 years and says that he wants to come back?
You know, when I look at where we are at the moment, I don't think there's anybody here who remembers the extraordinary economic turnaround of this province after the NDP did the damage in the 1990s. I wouldn't be desperately glad to have the highest wages in Canada, the highest use wages in Canada, the most number of women owning and operating businesses in Canada. The highest GDP growth was like 50% higher than the national average. If that's a track record that you want to look at and say is a bad thing, I'll take that any day of the week with what we have right now when 40,000 jobs got lost in this province in the last 90 days alone.
Okay, now for our second deep dive question, which will be the same for all candidates. The first goes to Mr. Black. BC has taken a more radical approach on harm reduction than perhaps anywhere else on earth. You know, other places have tried needle exchanges, but BC went one step further, going with crack pipe vending machines, blanket decriminalization, and safer supply. Even Premier Eby admitted some things went too far, leading him to restrict safer supply and not renew the decriminalization pilot. BC still has a drug crisis. People are dying. How much of the harm reduction strategy do you keep, and what do you replace? And would you close safe injection sites?
So, close safe injection sites, the experiment of David Eby's government was an appalling disaster, and the fact that even he admits it says something. The first promise that I made once I launched into this campaign was probably the most solemn one that I've made, and if we are successful, this will be the thing on which I will stake my reputation and whatever legacy vote might follow. And that is to reopen the Riverview land and the 244 acres that need to be redeveloped into a world-class center of mental health, drug addiction, and thank you. Because it is the root of all of the other challenges. If we don't step up to the human travesty that is playing out not just on the downtown east side, but on every equivalent street throughout this province in cities large and small, we will not get through that to other public safety issues, to public health issues, the police resources, which are 80% focused on these type of responses right now, and related criminal activity as well. It all starts with stepping up to mental health and drug addiction concerns, and my commitment on Riverview is absolute. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fulmer?
Thank you. This is an issue that tugs at my heart deeply. And I'm going to say pretty well the same thing I said at the Juno debate, but Peter and Kerry-Lynne can hear it this time. It was easy, I know. The reality is my faith, and whether you have faith or not, doesn't matter on this. We are called upon to help those in our society who are the weakest and most vulnerable. We're called upon to do it. And so when somebody is addicted to drugs, the solution is not safe supply, which Kerry-Lynne Elliott called a wonderful thing, and David Eby gave her a big pat on the back for doing it. That's not the solution. The solution is we pick up our friends, our neighbors, other British Columbians who are suffering. We make sure there are rehab beds available when they need them, and we make sure there are detox beds available when they need them. Not at some mythical time in the future, but we make sure they are there today. That is what I would do for a family member who is addicted. That is what you would do for your family members who are addicted. That is what, as British Columbians, we must do for our friends and neighbors. That's the plan.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Elliott?
This is one of those perfect issues where it really is true that conservative values are everyday British Columbian values. No British Columbian thinks let's hand out free drugs with no focus on recovery and thinks that that's somehow going to deal with the drug crisis and get people well. There's no everyday British Columbian who goes to the downtown east side, opens their eyes and says, this is working great, let's do more of this. It's actually it is a stain on our reputation internationally, but more importantly, it's an indictment of our ability to care compassionately and morally and humanely for people who need it. The right thing to do is end the crack pipe vending machines, close the safe injection sites, end the reckless decriminalization program, and focus on recovery. Focus on getting people well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Findlay?
Well, I agree that we need to do everything in our power to bring our loved ones home, drug-free, back to productive lives. There is no such thing as safe supply. That is a lie. And it's a lie that has been perpetrated in the language of compassion, and yet it's not compassion. There's nothing about it that's compassionate. I was just in Victoria, went to Pandora Street, talked to someone living on the street there who's really in a bad way due to drug addiction. We just need to go to the downtown east side. I like the Alberta model. They're having a lot of success because the government made up its mind to invest in people, to invest in the beds and the recovery that's needed. Harm reduction, you know, the problem here is it's become an end in itself, and that doesn't work. Abstinence is the only thing that works in the end, and our health authorities actively work against anyone who's in abstinence recovery. So we have to change that, bring our loved ones home drug-free, and do it, not just talk about it.
Thank you. Mr. Milobar?
Thank you. Mental health and addictions is broken in British Columbia, full stop. And it's not just the downtown east side, because the downtown east side exists in every community across this province. The reality is we all agree we need true involuntary care for those that have gotten themselves to that stage. But we also need voluntary care. I can tell you as an MLA, over the last 9 years that I've been an MLA, the calls for help grow every single year. We need to be able to provide treatment to those construction workers and others out there that get an opioid addiction because of an injury, start to self-medicate, and are a long ways away from ever getting to the downtown east side. If we do not have access to the preventative recovery and treatment needed to catch these people and their loved ones when the time is right, we will always keep growing the downtown east side problem. That is the core piece we need to grow out at the same time. It's not an either or, it's both at the same time.
Thank you. And now for rebuttals, again starting with Mr. Black.
I think we're pretty much in violent agreement on this particular question, so I have no rebuttal of any of my colleagues on stage.
Okay. Mr. Fulmer?
My question's to Ms. Elliott, now that she's had a little break. David Eby endorsed your views on safe supply. I'm not sure the word he used, but I think it might have been enlightened views on safe supply. And you described safe supply as part of recovery as a wonderful thing. Can you elaborate and explain those comments in light of what you just said?
Yeah, I think, again, using NDP press releases as your source of information is questionable, because that's where you got that from. And what I would say is I have been an absolutely consistent advocate for making sure that we have a program focused on treatment, a program focused on recovery. I have long opposed unsupervised safe supply that gets traded in the second they have a chance for more potent illegal drugs. It's not working. It was never going to work.
Ms. Elliott?
Your turn. I'm good on this one.
And Ms. Findlay?
I think Mr. Fulmer asked my question.
And Mr. Milobar?
Sure, we can move on.
That does conclude the questioning for tonight's debate. We will now move to closing statements. Each candidate will have exactly 60 seconds to make their final pitch to members. Based on the agreed-upon draw, the order for closing statements will be Kerry-Lynne Elliott, Ian Black, Peter Milobar, Yuri Fulmer, and finally, Kerry-Lynne Findlay. Ms. Elliott, the floor is yours. 60 seconds, please.
There is a lot we agree on this stage. We'll restore fiscal discipline, we'll cut taxes, reduce red tape, speed up permits, open BC up for business, and we need to do that. But this fight is about something bigger. It's about who we are. The NDP government and some on this stage are ashamed of our past, and they use that shame to define our future. They call us settlers and colonizers and uninvited guests in our own home. They teach our kids that the land that they stand on isn't theirs. They tear down symbols of our collective success. That all stops when I become Premier. I will pull the NDP ideology out by its roots. I'll repeal DRIPA. I will protect private property, put citizens before criminals, and end the activism in our schools. I'll govern for all British Columbians, not just a few. I'll bring our party together, defeat the NDP, and bring a new generation of hope to British Columbia.
Mr. Black, please.
British Columbia should be the most prosperous place in this country. What we have in front of us is a need for a plan and the leadership to unlock it. Well, here's my plan. Number one, a 20% income tax cut to make BC a magnet for investment and opportunity. Number two, private delivery of health care within a public paying model, because the NDP cannot be trusted to even complete a hospital that's half built. Number three, firm timelines for major project approvals, 120 days for government and 720 days for Indigenous consultation, with accountability involved for everyone. Number four, take back our main streets, crack down on the gangs and the drug dealers' free ride, and commit to real addiction recovery, including involuntary care at Riverview. Number five, restore social balance, core skills in our classrooms, parents back at the table, and merit and equality serving as our North Star. I alone have served in BC's cabinet, and I have defeated an NDP government twice. I am ready. Vote for me to get this province back on track.
Mr. Milobar.
Thank you. As I said at the beginning, to you, the 40,000 BC Conservative Party members out there, you have a critically important task ahead of you between now and May 30th. You need to sit down and think about who can best lead British Columbia. Not just the BC Conservative Party, but who can lead British Columbia? Who can be the adult in the room? Who has the temperament, the experience, and the know-how to actually guide British Columbia, which is a $100 billion a year dumpster fire right now, under David Eby's watch? I sit in that legislature every single day and continue to watch things get worse. As the finance critic for the last 4 years, I've watched with despair as we watch our finances slowly erode more and more and more. Our flexibility is gone. We do not have the option anymore. We need to make sure we unite as a right of centre voting bloc, and I'm counting on you to make the right decision. I know I have the expertise and the background to take this province in the right direction. Thank you.
Mr. Fulmer.
Kerry-Lynne and I now agree on two things this evening. British Columbians need hope. We need hope to come out of the mess that we are in, and hope that there is a better future for each and every one of us and a better future for our children. But we also need a plan. Hope without a plan is just a dream. And my friends, I've heard a lot of dreams on stage today. I've heard a lot of people talking about what to do and talking about how to unite the right and talking about all the things that they've said in the past. But I've got a plan. And the plan is twofold. We're going to make British Columbia the freest province in the country and the freest place on earth. I am the only person with a Freedom Charter. I will enshrine that in legislation so you are truly free under conservative values. I have a plan to unite the right. It's written on a piece of paper, and it is signed, sealed, and delivered, and it will guarantee us a victory. And while Dallas Brody endorses me as a Conservative, David Eby has endorsed Kerry-Lynne. That's all you need to know here.
Ms. Findlay.
Trust. Hard-earned, easily lost. BC United lost our trust. Mr. Milobar and Ms. Elliott defended DRIPA, SOGI, safe supply, decriminalization of hard drugs, COVID handling, and condemned the Freedom Convoy. Mr. Fulmer and Mr. Black both stated that I did unceded land acknowledgements as an MP. I never did. I never capitulated, never used the excuse that I had no choice. Gentlemen, Ms. Elliott, you always have a choice. That's not me. I am a fighter for our sovereignty and for our homes. I will unify and take that fight to grassroots British Columbians who want good jobs and who've had enough of being pushed around by big government, big corporations, global world elites, and Doug Ford operatives trying to buy or intimidate their way into power. I am leading to take this province back, speaking up for the 95%, protecting our kids from Sochi. Less government, more freedom. That's what we want.
Well, you're all clearly conservative because we've been very efficient. We've finished ahead of schedule. But this will conclude the 2026 BC Conservative Leadership Debate.
Does that mean we can have more time now?
I do want to sincerely thank our 5 candidates for stepping onto the stage tonight and sharing their visions for a better BC. Please note that voting opens on May 23rd and concludes on May